Hi everyone, I'm Gabriela Mercuri, Deputy Managing Director at Scope Europe, and today I'm very happy to host this discussion on GDPR codes of conduct and discuss a little bit the state of play of these tools and potential future developments, some already in the pipeline. So, since its approval last year, the EU Cloud CoC has been largely recognized as a very important initiative that has been really pushing co-regulatory developments in the European data protection landscape. The code has been largely supporting GDPR implementation across the entire cloud sector, coming from infrastructure as a service, passing through platform as a service, all the way through software as a service. So in order to continually develop and improve compliance tools, such as the EU Cloud CoC, as Scope Europe, we truly believe it is crucial to maintain an ongoing and meaningful dialogue with public stakeholders. This is why today, joining our talk is Mr. Ben Bracke, Director General of Digital and Data Policy at the German Federal Ministry for Digital and Transport. And thank you very much for accepting our invitation today.
My pleasure.
So without further ado, I will segue to our first question, which is basically, so it has been 4 years, a bit over 4 years since GDPR has come into force, and it became a global reference when it comes to the protection of fundamental rights. And the design of this regulation was made to withstand major changes, major innovation, and we are talking about a one-size-fits-all regulation that is regulating a lot of highly innovative, ever-transforming industries. And codes of conduct, they provide key guidance when it comes to filling this gap between those vague provisions and the actual concrete implementation of GDPR. So in that regard, we wanted to hear a little bit about your opinion when it comes to the main benefits of codes of conduct, particularly when it comes to the cloud sector.
Well, actually, I couldn't have said it better than you did, because actually that's actually the huge advantage of a code of conduct, that they fill the gap between what is regulated and what is actually not regulated, because this can't be regulated due to the circumstances that innovation is moving so fast. And the codes of conduct, actually, they provide the amount of flexibility you actually need to adapt regulation to ever-changing innovation. And insofar, I think we have a very good approach here with the codes of conduct in the data protection regulation.
All right, and being an expert when it comes to cloud computing as well, and as you know, the EU Cloud CoC is covering the full spectrum of cloud service layers, so you have a very comprehensive tool.
Exactly.
And how do you feel about that? What is the importance to have these tools which can really provide harmonization on a large scale on such a key sector such as the cloud industry?
It is extremely important. I think it is actually the core of it, because when you look at from where we came when we talked about cloud, we first talked about infrastructure as a service, yes, so only like storage space on a cloud, which is probably something you can very easily regulate. But when you look at the situation we're in right now, and as you said, it is only about 4 years after GDPR came into effect, we now have very, very dedicated services in the cloud. So it is not only about infrastructure, it is about the services you get out of the cloud. So there we have services which are from time to time really dedicated and designed for specific clients. And then again, a client is not using only one cloud. Many companies, and also the German government, by the way, is looking for a multi-cloud strategy. So in order actually to have this regulated in a way that it is self-regulated, I think codes of conduct where industry and stakeholders are coming together to agree on certain levels of self-regulation could provide the flexibility on the one hand side, actually to regulate an ever-changing innovation, and cloud is innovation, and it is providing innovation. But on the other hand, actually enable also innovation, because self-regulation, as it comes with the codes of conduct, could actually adapt to innovation quicker than ordinary regulation might do.
Exactly, Ben, and actually. Knowing the added value that we are currently witnessing in the cloud environment of codes of conduct and co-regulatory tools more generally. I wanted to get a little bit of your perspective, because despite of this added value, it's still a new tool in the market. I think there is a long way still when it comes to public awareness and the public and the private sector as well. And in that regard, how do you believe that the development of such a tools can be further encouraged, and meaning potential actions on the industry level, also authorities and so forth across Europe?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. Very important. Actually, it is very important actually to focus not only on the output but also on the outcome of these self-regulations mechanism. So output-oriented focus would only be, do we have this kind of thing in place? But when we look at outcomes, we have to focus on the question whether or not these self-regulation mechanisms actually solve real problems. And in that regard, I think we can do even better. I know that the people behind the Cloud Code of Conduct, they're actually talking to political decision makers. They're creating awareness for exactly this kind of tricky situation you're in. You need to regulate something which actually on the other side is developing so fast, which is cloud. So in order actually to gain more acceptance among the stakeholders, but also among public society and among political decision makers, who are very often, and this is not a criticism, but who are very often focused on like hard regulation. It is the more important that you actually provide outcome-oriented communication with codes of conduct. So in a way that you actually prove that the code of conduct is actually capable of solving real emerging challenges.
Yeah, and this is very important. You just touched upon a very a crucial concern for us working with co-regulatory tools. It's all about solving concrete issues, creating concrete guidance for the proper implementation of GDPR. And talking about concrete problems, I will bring up I don't know, it's been a while since it's the elephant in the room, but it's Schrems 2. As you know, codes of conduct are one of the tools that there's a lot of expectation, let's say, for a potential codes of conduct and for data transfers. And we are actually, the EU Cloud CoC General Assembly is currently working on a module. It's called the third country data transfer module. And I wanted to hear your opinion regarding, do you think it's obviously a very complex issue? You were talking about several jurisdictions. It's very complex to, let's say, embody all the solutions and supplementary measures within one tool. But we are working very hard on that one, and there's a lot of discussion in that regard. Do you think that codes of conduct are a potential solution or one of the solutions for international data transfers?
Absolutely. I would say it's a part of the solution. Of course, you have to come to certain hard terms when it comes to data transfer, especially in the transatlantic region. You mentioned Schrems 1 and Schrems 2. Currently, the US administration is working very hard on an executive order regarding data transfers, data access in the transatlantic region. But I think in order actually to put some, how to say, acceptance to this, you have to actually implement also measures of co-regulation, self-regulation. And as you said, we have roughly 4 years of experience with the European Cloud Code of Conduct. And I think this is a good starting point actually to establish something like that also in the transatlantic region. Because let's be frank, we won't see some kind, like apart from discussions in the US, for example, introducing also data protection regulations, as some states do copy-paste basically of the GDPR. They also have discussions around content moderation, similar to the one we have here in Europe around the DSA, also around competition. How could we ensure competition in the digital age? So we have kind of the same discussion on both sides of the Atlantic, but we will never see, how to say, an adjustment of like both juridical systems. However, we are dependent, our economy is dependent on data transfers on both sides of the Atlantic, by the way, not only on Europe, but also on the US side. So in order actually to get a common understanding of what should be minimum criteria for data transfer, data access, I think a self-regulation tool like the Code of Conduct on Cloud could be a very good starting point to establish trust in data transfer in the transatlantic region.
Thank you. And one final element that I wanted to touch upon, and it's a specific, a key differentiator, I think, when it comes to codes of conduct is also something quite new, is the monitoring body, right? I think we obviously at CoC Europe, we act as the secretariat and the monitoring body of the EU Cloud CoC. And this is something new. I mean, codes of conduct were already present in the directive, but GDPR brings this monitoring body, which truly is, it sounds redundant, but it truly embodies the idea of accountability, of an ongoing due diligence. So what is your perception in that regard? What is that particular added value of having this ongoing due diligence of a monitoring body?
Yes, I think it is key to have a monitoring body at a code of conduct, because as you said, the code of conduct is a co-regulation specifically or primarily by industry players, yes. So you need to have some kind of independent monitoring or supervision of the code of conduct, because not only because it is important in itself to have this kind of independent monitoring, but it will also enhance credibility and acceptance of a code of conduct if you have an independent body of monitoring. Let me give you an example why this is important. Back in, I think it was 2020, we introduced the so-called Corona One app. It started as a project primarily as an industry project, and it didn't gain a lot of acceptance because people were afraid of losing money, of losing data, or of unjustified access to data. So what did they do? They took other organizations on board, amongst them, for example, the Chaos Computer Club, which has a very high reputation when it comes to IT security. So when they were actually starting to work on this project, the whole project gained more acceptance, and the speed and the numbers of downloads of the app actually increased. So what I would like to say with this is that in order to gain acceptance for such a crucial project, you also need to take on board people who might be critical towards the whole project, but who might, in case you actually integrate them and have a proper exchange on how to say eye to eye, that might actually help you in the end to increase the acceptance and the willingness also of industry partners to actually participate in these kind of co-regulating mechanisms. So to put it short, it is crucial to have some kind of independent monitoring bodies amongst, beside some co-regulated mechanisms.
Yes, the great thing also is obviously you have a benchmark when it comes to the requirements, and they are quite strict. Actually, there is a lot of discussion on the approval of the codes and the challenges of the approval, but the accreditation process is also extremely complex, and for a good reason. But one of the greatest things is that there's a lot of flexibility in the sense we can really put into practice the risk-based approach, right? Because a monitoring body is designed according to the specific risks that certain activities will trigger. So for the EU Cloud CoC, we went even beyond the requirements, because for the cloud industry, it made total sense. And that flexibility, coming back to what we discussed in the beginning, is really crucial when you were dealing with such a fast-paced economy with highly innovative industries and so forth. So on the last, I know I said already the last question was the last question, but
the very last question.
The very, very last question is, we talk very often, although GDPR doesn't say this, that codes of conduct under GDPR need to be sector-specific tools, but a lot of legal commentaries, guidelines, they point towards this direction, and the developments have been in this direction. So first of all, do you see that potential codes of conduct, for instance, for anonymization, which could be a cross-sectoral tool, do you think those could still work out? And on last question would be, knowing what we just discussed as well, that the market's still picking up on these tools. It's awareness on both sides, also on the authority level, on the implementation, on the enforcement, and so forth. But do you see that in the future this will really pick up and this will become a key instrument for GDPR compliance, and also for other potential regulatory developments? As you mentioned, you have codes of conduct popping up in different legislations and the European level notably.
Yeah. I think that's the way forward. I think when you look at not only of codes of conduct on the GDPR, I think they have proven to be very efficient. They have proven to be very credible. But now the European Union is actually is about to regulate like other innovations as well. When you only look, for example, at the AI Act, which is currently on the table. From my personal perspective, I could very well imagine to have codes of conduct also, for example, among the AI Act, because also AI is something which is like very, very quickly developing. So the question which is arising is, are we in a position actually to adjust regulation in order, or in how to say, with the speed of innovation, or are we establishing some co-regulating body which is actually self-regulated but monitored? And I think in order actually to enhance credibility and to enhance trust in new technologies, I think this could be one way forward when we talk about the regulation of innovation. All
right. Thank you very much, Ben, for taking the time today, and I look forward to further discussing in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you.